Hey guys, what's up? This is Andy Brew, and this is going to be my initial thoughts of the new tier sets coming to tanks in Season 3 Dragonflight and what they will mean to each tank. So, first up, we have Blood Decay, and my initial thoughts on Blood Decay is so, first of all, you have to always think with every single tank, you have to think about what tier set they gained and what tier set they lost. So Blood Decay is going to lose a tier set from season 2, which gained it lots of random vampiric bloods, which was kind of nice for survivability. You ended up kind of playing around them a lot. It was certainly nice on some of the harder fights in Mythic. However, at the same time, it was also very random. So it is at times hard to play around. So I think the survivability loss from that will not be felt too much. This tier set is potentially very strong, especially with the fact that the four sets you get to extend Ashen Decay by 1 second with Heartstrike and Blood Boil. So it means that you're going to be able to debuff mobs and make them take 20% more damage, while at the same time you're going to reduce the amount of damage you take by 10%. I think that this tier set is very strong, especially in AoE. Like, this is going to be a very strong tier set in Mythic Plus, especially like a pool where you go in with, like, you know, you pop A-Bomb Limb, pop Empower Rune Weapon, you get your Ghoul, you're pressing Dancing Rune Weapon, and then you're just slamming Heartstrike and Blood Boil. This is going to be an extremely strong tier set, like, going into a pack with that. I do think, however, that a big caveat to this tier set is the two set where it says consuming a blood charge. So an issue of this is that in raiding, especially on bosses where it's a taunt swap boss fight, when you're not really tanking anything, you're not going to be consuming blood charges aside from when you press Tombstone. So a big issue with this is namely that your uptime of Ashen Decay might fall down a bit in raiding. I really do think that this tier set really shines when you're tanking mobs all the time, which is obviously something like Mythic Plus. So I think this is going to be a very strong tier set for Mythic Plus. I don't think this is Season 3 Shadowlands level strong that Blood Decay had before, but I do think it's very good if you're a Blood Decay player who wants to play Blood Decay and then Plus, you know, maybe it's your main. I do think this is a nice inadvertent buff for you going into this expansion. So now, okay, that was Blood Decay. So now we move on to Vengeance Demon Hunter. So first of all, I think compared to the Blood Decay tier sets and some of the other tier sets, I think this tier set is very boring. Just being based around Sigil of Flame, I think is a very boring tier set design. And going on from that, I think losing the Fiery Brand tier set from last season, from season 2, is a massive loss to your survivability. The tier set from last season was beyond broken for Vengeance Demon Hunter. It was incredibly strong. It propelled Vengeance Demon Hunter to heights that it should never have achieved normally. And I think with the loss of that tier set, Vengeance TH will be requiring some significant buffs to compensate, I would say. And just looking based off this tier set, like, I did some napkin math. Your Sigil of Flame with, like, all of the associated talents, and spending Fury, you can probably get it to like 15-ish seconds, maybe less. I don't think this is really that strong. I think it's very weak. I mean, damage and healing increased by 2%, stacking up to 5. You know, that's 10% healing, 10% max health, 10% damage. I think this is very, like, the Shattering an additional soul fragment. It's not really enough, I would say. But yeah, so I think Vengeance TH got hit very hard here in terms of that their tier sets from last year was so strong, and this tier set just doesn't match up. So I think this is inadvertently a very big nerf to Vengeance TH, and we'll have to see if Blizzard does some compensation buffs in return. So moving on, we have Guardian Druid. Now, Guardian Druid, like Vengeance TH, was another kind of candidate in the very strong tier set last season. It was more of a passive tier set, but it was still very strong. It obviously isn't the sole reason why Guardian Druid is as good as it is. Like, if you guys have followed the season at all, Guardian Druid, ever since, for a very long time now, has just been absolutely broken and rampant in Mythic Plus. It has been the God King of tanks for a very long time now, played throughout the Great Push, throughout High Keys. It is the real king. It's the real deal. Now, I do think that this tier set is also kind of similar to the Vengeance TH in that this tier set is an inadvertent nerf. And I'll kind of explain why. So the thing is, this tier set is all based around Rage of the Sleeper, which is kind of a weird decision by Blizzard, considering the fact that Rage of the Sleeper, often there have been like other builds that don't use it. Most people, 90% of the time, do use it, but this kind of kills all potential of not using Rage of the Sleeper, makes it absolutely mandatory, because otherwise, you don't have a tier set that works with it. So the thing is that Rage of the Sleeper is a 1 minute cooldown and it's a 10-second buff. So this 4 set, extending a 10-second buff by 5 more seconds, come on, man. Like, this is, I don't even know what to call this, to be honest with you. So your Dream Thorns become Blazing Thorns, causing damage to absorb to be reflected to the attacker. So this is similar to what Rage of the Sleeper itself does in terms of reflecting damage. I would say that this is going to be very minor amount of damage. Only in like big AoE pools would this Blazing Thorns be at all kind of like powerful or noticeable. So one thing that we don't know though, as of this video that I don't know, is how long the 2 set is going to be. So it says that which growth of Dream Thorns, which wreath you in protection after Rage of the Sleeper expires, absorbing 10% damage you deal while the thorns remain. So it's kind of like, I'm not entirely sure if it's thorns is just some absorb that stays on you, and then when the absorb is gone, that's when thorns are gone. That's kind of how I read it. So the issue with something like this is you would need to do an insane amount of like damage in your Rage of the Sleeper moment, which is like very possible. Like, you're gonna obviously line this up with your Incon. You're probably gonna play lots of talents that give you reduced cost of Rage on Iron Fur, so you can spam it in this window. You're definitely gonna try and do as many things as possible to play around this. The problem is though, let's say you pop this inside Incon, you're in Incon anyway, and then you have like this huge absorb, and it's kind of like, okay, I'm increasing my survivability in a window where I'm already strong. And then the thing is, let's say you pop this outside of Incon, it's probably not going to be as good, and the absorb, especially in high Mythic Plus content, and even progress rating, it's probably just going to fall off very quickly. So you're not really going to get much value. But I guess we'll see. We'll see how, like, 10% to me, I don't know. It doesn't sound very strong, to be honest with you. I could be wrong. Like, it is a minute cooldown, which is very short, and it lasting 15 seconds is kind of good. I think Guardian Druid will be less hit by this than what Vengeance TH will be hit by with their new tier set. And that's just because Guardian Druid outside of this is still such a powerhouse that I think while this tier set might not necessarily be as good as the last one, is still decently strong. And who knows, perhaps I am wrong. Perhaps this is even stronger than my initial thoughts are. Um, Obviously, I will do like another video with all of the different tanks and going into more depth to try and see how strong these are. But from my initial thoughts, I think that this is kind of like it's okay. But yeah. Anyway, so we move on to this one. This one made me laugh quite a lot, which is the protection paladin one. Now, so first of all, every time you judgment, you grant a stack of sanctification, increasing your armor by 1% per stack. Upon reaching 10 stacks, your next cast of consecration is empowered. So one initial problem here is 10 judgments is quite a lot. That's kind of an obscene amount, really, unless you're getting insane Grand Crusader procs. And then increasing your armor by 1% per stack is an incredibly pathetic buff. Like, to put it in perspective, guys, 10% armor per stack is something around 2% physical DR. I think it might be slightly higher. I think it's like 2.2, 2.3, something like that. It's a pathetic amount, really. Second of all, your next cost consecration is empowered, increasing its damage and healing by 2%, 200%. So the damage is very big, especially in AoE. Like when you get over 5 targets, consecration and Shield of Righteous start just absolutely booming in AoE, and consecration, especially in very large AoE, does very well. So this is potentially very good. However, there's a few problems. So number one is you're basing the entire strength of this tier set around consecration, which is a buff that you can just move out of, and who knows what happens. You know, all sorts of stuff happens in M+, where you have to move out, you know, or positioning with bosses. Pretty much every last boss in every tier for a very long time has been very movement based, which is why as if you play prop paladin and lots of end bosses, you have to be very good with your movement and consecration placement. So having this on top of it is like an increased affix, and it would not feel good to play. This would feel horrendous to play inside, especially progress rating. I would not want to play paladin with this tier set. The radius obviously is increased, but 30% radius, that's not enough. So the healing is more interesting. We'd have to see how big the healing would be if you played stuff like Seal of Mercy, Golden Path, those sort of things. But it also kind of tries to pigeonhole you into those talents, which is very strange. I'm not really liking the design choice, I would say. Okay, and then going from that, when you're within an empowered consecration, your abilities have a chance to deal 20% damage or healing as fire. So the thing is, this empowered consecration is a 14-second buff. Like every consecration is 14 seconds. So 14 seconds, and you have to do 10 judgments every time to get it. This is going to have a very low uptime. And then there's also the fact that you're going to want to stay in this, or your tier set's basically GG, it doesn't work. Yeah, I think this is like, I think someone's having a laugh with this tier set, I'll be honest. I would have definitely chosen many different things with this tier set, and yeah, I'm not really a big fan. I think it's very weak. I think Prop Paladin, if anything, definitely needed a few W's this tier, because Holy Paladin has been so rampant and so strong that, especially inside Mythic Plus, Prop Paladin has been less and less wanted ever since, well, last season, Season 2. So yeah, I definitely think this is a huge hit to Prop Paladin, which was already kind of like wanting more. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Hope that maybe Blizzard changes it, does something to it. I don't know. I just see tons of issues with a tier set like this. You're going to have to play exceptionally good to play around this in very hard content compared to every other tier sets, which is just not much thinking required. You know, brain AFK, just boom, press W. That tier set, you're going to have to play very good. And I don't like that. I don't like the idea that one tank has to play, 10 times better with his tier set to have the same results as someone else, if not still worse results. I think that is horrendous design. So yeah, have to see what they do. But yeah, not looking too good for Prop Paladin from my initial thoughts. Obviously, I haven't tested it, but yeah, it looks bad. So now we move on to the Monk, which is actually probably one of the strongest tier sets, I think, from based off my initial thoughts. So first of all, the Breath of Fire, well, being able to heal from 50% of all fire damage, especially right now when you're playing Charred Passions, is really, really strong. And I assume fire damage also means Shadow Flame damage, which means potentially, the Breath of Fire bonus damage of Shadow Flame will heal you. That also means that potentially if there's some new trinkets that do fire damage, they will heal you. Shadow Flame Enchant, Shadow Flame Reef, I think it's called, on your weapon, that potentially will heal you as well. So yeah, all in all, there's potentially a lot of sources of fire damage that you can do. We'll have to see if Charred Passions is the play over playing Dragonfire Brew. Not 100% sure, but maybe Dragonfire Brew ends up being more healing. I'm not entirely sure on that one. Probably Charred Passions will still be the play. Have to see though. But now we have the more interesting thing, which is to do with Celestial Brew. So your attacks afflicted by Breath of Fire have a chance to deal 5% extra damage to Shadow Flame. That's cool. That probably adds to the healing. That's nice. And each Celestial Brew now also grants a Stagger Absorb equal to the amount of Shadow Flame damage you have dealt, causing damage delayed by Stagger to instead be prevented. So this is insane. Like, I can't put into words how potentially strong this is, especially in Mythic Plus, where you have tons of mobs hitting you. And you're going to be doing, let's say you're playing a Charred Passions build, you're going to be doing tons of damage in AoE, and then you just hit Celestial Brew, boom, and then all that stagger, it's gone. It's gone. Like, I don't think, at least from looking at Twitter, people realize how insane this actually is. Like, this is very, very, very broken, I would say. Just from a pure tankiness point of view, from a pure survivability point of view, this is exceptionally good. Probably one of the best kind of like force set or kind of defensive designs Monk has gotten in a while, I would say, from a tier set. So I would see you would definitely go some very high CDR Celestial Brew builds, basically wanting to pump out as many Celestial Brews as possible inside kind of, well, whenever you're doing like AoE packs, to be honest with you, inside or Mythic Plus, you're doing that constantly. So I can see this just being straight really strong. Like, part of the big issues in M Plus is you pop Celestial Brew and it just gets torn through. Because obviously you're usually going to pop Celestial Brew when you're taking high amounts of damage. And then at the same time, you have like really high stagger and it's just like everything is just ripping through you. Now what this means is that every time you press Celestial Brew, it's a huge break. You're going to have a massive shield. And then on top of that, all of your stagger is just gone. So I think this is very, very good. Who knows what this could do to Monk? Perhaps this could propel it, exponentially. It's hard to say, but I think this tier set is very good. And moving on to the final tank, which is the Protection Warrior. So I thought about this 2-set briefly, and I think it's going to be a lot of damage on single target. Like a huge amount of damage on single target, because so you have two bleeds as prot warrior, which is you have rend and you have grievous wounds. So the thing is that grievous wounds is like okay-ish damage, but rend is a lot. So being able to put rend on a target from thunderclap and then shield slamming and then causing that to instantly like deal damage, that is gonna be a lot of damage, I would say, like a lot. I would say that this tier set definitely falls down a bit in terms of AoE, because you reset the cooldown of thunderclap, which doesn't mean too much. Obviously it's nice because, you know, you consume a bleed, then you insta thunderclap again, which obviously brings back your rend on targets, especially the targets that you cleared your bleeds on. But at the same time, yeah, I think in general on AoE it's probably like meh, it's okay. I would say the cooldown of Thunder's Roar being reduced is also like meh, it's okay, I think. I think it's certainly nice, but yeah, it's not the main thing. I would say the 2-set is by far the strongest thing. And I would say this is a tier set more geared towards raiding than it is M+, just purely because you're going to be able to do tons of damage on single target. You're going to be consuming your bleeds all the time on single target. And then at the same time, you're going to be causing the target to do 10% less damage to you. Obviously, it's only 5 seconds, which is not really too much. They probably could have increased that, to be honest with you. But yeah, I still think it's decently, like, kind of decent. Obviously, it all depends on what is the chance when you spend rage that causes your next shield slam to consume your bleed. But if the chance is high, which I'm kind of thinking based off my initial thoughts looking at this, it is, then I would say this tier set is very strong. At least for single target damage, this is going to be very, very good. And probably make prot warrior do tons of damage on single target. So yeah, all in all, that's basically my sum up of all the different tanks. So I will do another video in the future where I go on PTR, I play every single tier set, I give you guys a more detailed thought then. This was just basically my initial thoughts. And yeah, so yeah, I hope you guys liked it. Stay tuned for more content, and I will see you guys later. Bye bye.